Near-sighted mummies, countin plagues prematurely, and breaking gender stereotypes left and right. Things happened so fast in The Mummy, you might have missed these deets the first time around. The Mummy opens with an extensive prologue about High Priest Imhotep's backstory in ancient Egypt. He had a secret relationship with the Nuxu Namun, the mistress of Pharaoh Seti I, and the two of them died for their forbidden love and betrayal. The film is so fun and exciting that, on first viewing, you may not realize that this is actually the only exposition and backstory the audience gets. The Mummy largely exists in the present moment with minimal references to the past of other central characters. While we find out that Evie and Jonathan Carnahan's parents died, we never learn what happened to them. Nor do we discover what brought Jonathan to Egypt, other than following his sister.
You lied to me.
I lie to everybody. What makes you so special?
We also know nothing of Rick's past before he joined the French Foreign Legion and traveled to Hamunaptra with his garrison, where he was attacked by the Medjai. This lack of backstory contributes to the fast pace of the film and its lighthearted comedic vibe. The plot propels the characters forward at a breakneck speed, so they don't have much time to ruminate. This approach also leaves some significant unanswered questions in The Mummy. But luckily, the 2001 sequel, The Mummy Returns, addresses some of them. In that film, we learn about Rick's mysterious tattoo in childhood in an orphanage in Cairo, as well as Evie's past life connection to ancient Egypt and Pharaoh Seti's royal court. When Jonathan startles Evie at the museum by hiding in a coffin with a mummy and jumping out at her, we immediately understand the archetype he represents. He's a comic relief sidekick. But after a bit of reflection and a couple of more viewings, you might realize his first interaction between brother and sister teaches us much more about Jonathan than you noticed at first. First, Jonathan admits he'd sometimes like to join the ranks of the dead.
I wish you would do it sooner rather than later before you ruin my career the way you've ruined yours.
This makes us wonder what exactly his career is. The film depicts him as a professional thief, gambler, and drinker. This interaction doesn't reveal what Jonathan's career was, but it suggests he feels lost and like a failure. He jokes about wishing he could join the dead and complains about finding nothing of value on archaeological digs. This plants a seed that Jonathan may have been an Egyptologist at one point, although he isn't as knowledgeable as Evie. Tor.com honed in on how Jonathan's dialogue hints at a more tragic past. Given his age and the era, it's possible Jonathan fought in World War I and has PTSD, which has left him shell-shocked. Or much like Winston of the Royal Air Force, Jonathan may suffer from survivor's guilt, drowning his torment in booze and questionable decisions. Although none of the other films in the Mummy franchise reveal anything about Jonathan's ruined career, he proves himself resourceful and entrepreneurial throughout. It's probably best not to spend too much time tearing this little plot hole apart. Obviously, the puzzle box containing the map had to come into Rick, Jonathan, and Evie's possession for this wild adventure to transpire, and the Mummy wouldn't exist without Rick finding it. But upon further viewing, did you think it was foolish of the Medjai to put the map in the key and then bury them in Hamunaptra near Imhotep's sarcophagus?
Relax. I'm the map. It's all up here.
If the Medjai were trying to prevent Imhotep from being resurrected, why didn't they separate the map from the key and send them to different continents? Or better yet, why didn't they simply destroy the map and key? One thing you may have not noticed during your first, second, or even third viewing is that when Evie's boss at the museum in Cairo, Dr. Terence Bay, accidentally lights the map on fire and burns off the location of Hamunaptra, he's actually performing his duties as a Medjai to keep the location a secret. Although The Mummy is a nostalgic film for a lot of us who saw it as children or teens, there are some questionable things you might not have noticed during your first viewing. One problematic aspect of the film is that many of the ethnic characters are depicted as one-dimensional racial stereotypes. Ardeth Bay is treated with respect and gravitas, but this proves to be a somewhat unique representation overall. According to a writer from Cracked, it is and has always been aggressively racist. The writer calls out the franchise for its questionable choices, saying, "There isn't a single MENA person in a lead role in The Mummy, and the supporting roles are stocked with actors of various nationalities playing Arabs, who are usually offensive caricatures." This is especially the case with the character of the warden Gard Hassan, played by actor Omid Djalili, who's often the butt of racist jokes in the film.
Hey, where'd our smelly little friend get to?
Djalili told Entertainment Weekly that because of his Iranian background, he felt the weight of representing Middle Eastern culture. He asked director Stephen Sommers, "Look, why don't we play him differently because, with all due respect to you, what you've written is not even one-dimensional. I can possibly get this to a two-dimensional stereotype." And then there's a matter of casting the ancient high priest Imhotep with a white actor.
Oops.
In 2019, Arnold Vosloo told Entertainment Weekly, "I always wonder, if it were happening today, would I get the part? I mean, here I am, white South African. They'd probably cast a real Egyptian." The mummy includes a group of Americans, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Daniels, and Mr. Burns, who are traveling to Hymenoptera, and they're not depicted in the most glowing light either.
You're looking for Hymenoptera?
Damn straight we are.
And who says we are?
He does.
Evie and Jonathan, who grew up in the UK, both make derisive comments about the Americans at their dig site before telling Rick, no offense, almost as an afterthought.
No offense.
None taken.
And okay, perhaps it's called for in this case. These Americans, after all, are grave robbers. It feels like the digs are a good-natured way to poke fun at Americans' international reputation for being terrible tourists. The first time we see the Americans depicted as nutty yahoos is in a gun battle with the Medjay warriors.
Americans.
They hoot and holler and fire their six-shooters with reckless abandon while the barge burns around them. The Americans then barrel ahead at the dig site and open the chest despite the warnings of Benny and the Egyptologist, Dr. Alan Chamberlain. After Imhotep hunts them down in order to suck them dry to restore his flesh and power, the Americans prove to be all bluster with little bravery to back it up. After taking Mr. Burns' eyes and tongue, Imhotep mistakes Evie for a Nuxumanoon. It might seem like Imhotep is just totally obsessed with his deceased paramour, but after watching The Mummy a few times, it becomes clear this is a gag referring to Mr. Burns' poor eyesight. When we first meet Mr. Burns on the barge, his compatriots give him a hard time.
Quit playing with your glasses and cut the deck, would you, Burns?
Well, without my glasses, I can't see the deck to cut it, can I, Daniel?
So Imhotep took Burns' eyes and tongue. And since he's rebuilding his body from the Americans' organs, it makes sense that until Imhotep is fully regenerated and has his ancient Egyptian mojo back, he might be nearsighted like his very first organ donor. Nearly everyone headed to Hymenoptera is a grave robber, who takes no moral or ethical issue with stealing from the dead or another culture. Greed motivates Jonathan. Warden Guard Hassan is driven by avarice, as are Benny and the Americans. Dr. Alan Chamberlain seems to be a serious archaeologist, but the way he cradles the Book of the Dead after finding it with the canopic jar suggests that he too covets treasure. On the barge, Evie is impressed that Rick knows the Book of Amun-Ra was rumored to be made of pure gold.
You know your history.
I know my treasure.
This 1920s Egyptian treasure fever is historically accurate. Few Egyptian tombs made it to modernity without being raided. Even King Tutankhamun's tomb had been partially pillaged before it was discovered by British archaeologist Howard Carter and his financier Lord Carnarvon in 1922. However, recent evidence suggests that Carter may have actually been the one to disturb the tomb before its official opening. But Evie's not looking to line her pockets. She wants to know more about ancient Egypt and hopes to fill museums, not a bank account with riches. Fortunately, The Mummy doesn't celebrate greed. The film's message is that looting the country of its history and wealth is decidedly not good. And most of the characters who do so end up dying horribly. A scarab crawls under Warden Gad Hassan's skin and eats him from the inside out. Imhotep sucks the Americans and the Egyptologist dry, leaving behind shell-like husks. Benny gets eaten alive by scarabs after the crypt self-destructs. And then there's Jonathan.
Well, I guess we go home empty-handed. Again.
Ultimately, Jonathan's rewarded with saddlebags full of treasure because he overcame his greed to help Rick save Evie and send Imhotep back to the underworld. And although Rick begins the film as a questionable character who's interested first and foremost in finding treasure, when the chips are down, he doesn't run away, even though he wants to. In the end, Rick, Evie, Jonathan, and Ardeth band together and walk away from all that glittering gold in the treasure room. Instead, they take responsibility for their part in resurrecting Imhotep. And it's this refusal to let their greed win that sees them rewarded in the end. On multiple viewings of The Mummy, you might realize that Imhotep having the power of the 10 plagues of Egypt doesn't quite add up. In the Book of Exodus, God unleashes 10 plagues, including locusts, blood, and boils upon Egypt because the pharaoh refuses to let Moses' people go. While the identity of that pharaoh has been debated, most people believe that it refers to Ramses II, the successor of King Seti I. In the world of The Mummy, that means that Imhotep gets cursed with the Humdai before the 10 plagues are unleashed upon Egypt, which creates a bit of a historical plot hole.
Give me frogs, flies, locusts, anything but you. Compared to you, the other plagues were a joy.
Locusts swarm Hymenoptera right after Evie resurrects Imhotep from reading the Book of the Dead, which confirms that Imhotep has the power to bring the 10 plagues of Egypt with him. Although we see many of the plagues, including locusts, flies, hail, an eerie eclipse, and Jonathan's favorite, boils, we don't see all 10. Maybe the frogs, lice, and livestock pestilence happened somewhere outside of Cairo while burning hail destroyed the city. Luckily for Jonathan, the last and perhaps most devastating plague, the death of firstborn sons, never materializes. Evie might start out The Mummy as a librarian, but she's an adventurer at heart.
You're wondering What is a place like me doing in a girl like this?
The more times you watch it, the more you realize how her character isn't restricted by gender norms or genre tropes. When the warden makes an indecent proposal while bargaining for Rick's life, Evie smacks his hand away and negotiates a smaller share of the treasure for Rick's release. And Evie is also the most distinguished in her career amongst the core characters.
I'm a librarian.
Evie knows Egyptian history and archaeology, and both Jonathan and Rick respect that she's in charge of the dig site. She isn't just feisty and smart, she's nearly fearless. The weird noises in Hymenoptera don't frighten her, because she's not superstitious. And after Evie sees Imhotep and accepts that he's real, she refuses to run away. Instead, Evie insists they deal with Imhotep because she's the one who set him free. Although there are points in the film where it looks like Evie's being painted as a damsel in distress, Rick even calls her one to Winston, she consistently pushes against this.
What? What'd I say?
There are disconcerting moments, such as Rick kissing her without consent and locking her in a room to protect her from Imhotep, but Evie pushes back. When Imhotep takes Evie hostage, she goes with him willingly in order to save everyone from his zombies. She's an integral part of the team, rather than a two-dimensional love interest in service of the male hero.